then the method of unloading. Everybody back then had what they called trip stakes, because when you got to the mill, there wasn't anybody to unload you. You had to unload yourself. And you had to get rid of those stakes that were holding the logs on the truck. But how did you do that? Well, it's what they call a trip stake. And the bottom section of most of these, some of the trip stakes, were metal, a metal stake pocket, and then the rest of it would use a good strong wooden stake. Hardack was a real favorite thing. And what held the bottom stake pocket on one side, it would sit vertically when it was in position. When it was tripped, it would be tipped actually, so it would be headed downhill. And when it was up in place, a chain or cable went around it. And at the end of that, it had quite a long oval link. This oval link went over a pin that had quite a curvature kink in it. And this pin went back around so that it was parallel with the log bunk on the bottom. And a piece of pipe slid over that pin. And so that locked it in place. On the other side of the truck, there was usually a wire with a loop in it, a heavy steel bar hooked to that piece of pipe. And then when you got ready to dump your load, to unload, you took off your cables or straps that you had securing it. And then you had to trip the stakes. And you wanted to trip them both at the same time so that the load went right off nice and even.
Shakes the whole earth.
Yep. And you could take the log chains, and many times that's what it anchored your load anyway, and you take your chains, take the hook, and put in that loop on the end of the slides on each one that would release the stakes, and you're on the opposite side of the truck. And then you take and you yank, snap both of those at the same time, and hope that they both release. Mm-hmm. And everything dumps off the other side of the truck. Sometimes you break some of your stakes, sometimes the wood's on top of them and you can't get them out. So you just get some others, and the next time you come back to the mill, you pick up your other stakes. But that was done that way for years.
Well, it hasn't been, I can remember the first loader, wasn't it Chris Sweezy had the loader in between the trailer there?
Yeah, the Charlie Towsley.
Charlie Towsley,
yep. Yeah. He came up and he set some hand-hewed beams in my living room ceiling with that. Yep. So that was about 28 years ago or so. Yeah, that's about the time that they became common, and there were loaders before that. Some they weren't very good. They were.
They'd be better than working against gravity, but
yeah. Yeah, so things have come a long ways, and there's a lot of labor-saving things out there today, and definitely safer. And the workers' comp ratings will give logging contractors lower rates the more mechanized they are. Mm-hmm. That if someone is 100% mechanized, which very few are here because their terrain just doesn't allow for it, but if you were using a harvester where man's sitting in a cab, yep, fully protected, and cutting the tree and laying it on the ground and delimbing it, cutting it to length and stacking it, yep, and a man's hands never touch it. A chainsaw is not used.
And that happens like that, almost.
Yep.
That whole process that you just described, cutting it, limbing, cut to length and file.
But in order for someone to do that, they have to have a lot of wood because it is fast. Mm. And today with the smaller size of lots, just because of the fragmentation of land and stuff, it's a lot harder to justify that.
Yeah, for where we live.
For here, yeah. One of those harvesters today, a good harvester with a high-speed saw head and stuff, the whole piece of equipment would be in excess of $300,000. Mm-hmm. for that one piece of equipment.
Yep.
And if you have something like that, it has to keep working. It isn't, well, I'll use it this month and then we won't use it again for a few more.
Well, the ones I saw in Maine, the harvesters were working 10-hour days. And then in other operations, they would work 2 10-hour shifts.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the lights, they have the heat, they have the operators. He doesn't care if it's day or night. He can see enough with the lighting, be warm enough to work. But that's big ownership. That's that industrial paper company lands in Maine. But it was the biggest machine I ever saw in the woods, cutting the smallest stuff I ever saw in the woods too.
But I've seen some small Valmet harvesters, like on Prince Edward Island, cutting very small.
Unbelievable, yeah.
But an operator there in his shift, he said that he would cut, delimb, and cut the length and pile, then it'd be taken out of the woods with a forwarder to the truck. But that he would do about 60 cord in a shift.
60 in 10 hours?
Yeah. So that's the equivalent of like 5 or 6 tractor trailer loads.
Yep.
And that's one person, one machine. So.
Well, you brought up workers' comp. What is the highest workers' comp rate in the country for what industry?
I think an astronaut, I think at one time was, and there's only a couple of them.
Okay. Well, what's...
But logging's right, if it's not at the top, it's very close to
okay,
it.
and what is the rate? What do you mean by when you say the workers' comp rate? As an employer, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's an expense, a very big expense, and workers' compensation is required by law for any employer that has employees. And when something happens from an accident, which could be temporarily loss of a month or two's work with a broken arm, it could be a severed arm that you're like that for the rest of your life. It could be death. And there are families, dependents involved in everything, and the workers' comp insurance will help with, substantially help, I mean into the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, but if you wanted to hire me, and I said, well, how much are you going to pay me? What goes through your mind?
Well, right now the workers' compensation rates are lower than they were about 12, 15 years ago. They probably reached a peak.
And that was like 40%?
It was actually over 40%.
So if you wanted to hire me for $100 a week that I would get, it cost you $140 a week. Minimum.
With the workers' comp.
With the
But then as an employer, you also are obligated for half of Social Security, federal unemployment, state unemployment. There's a medical in there. And then you have your own liability insurance and other things that are connected to it. So
business is fun, isn't it?
There's a lot there. If for every dollar that I pay an employee, I probably have to pay at least $1.50.
So is that, okay, all those...
That it costs me with these other things added in, so...
Well, it's a great thing to have, and it's a level playing field if everybody has it. You're not at a disadvantage with another logger to go buy a lot if everybody operates under the same playing field.
Exactly.
But
unfortunately, it appears in the wood industry that the majority of the numbers of people engaged in the business are not covered by a valid workers' comp policy. And this historically has been like that.
So they can pay anybody that works for them a lot more than you can pay them.
Yep.
They can pay more for logs than you can pay. They're quite an advantage until there's an accident.
That's right, until there's an accident. And sometimes when somebody's has instantly gone out of business, that is the reason why. And I can think of at least two instances in Bennington County over the past 20-some years where something like that happened. It's unfortunate, but it does. The other thing that also happens is that many times when you say employee-employer relationship, if it isn't handled outright, in a legal manner as required by law, then it's really not an employer-employee relationship. And that way, the employee is not having taxes withheld, and is not, if something happens, he's not going to get obviously not going to get workers' comp benefit, not going to get unemployment benefits or anything else. So these are...
I mean, it all works good until there's an accident.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's just it's what overhead is in any...
Yeah, and I think in every business they have those things. I think in logging it's just more because the numbers are bigger.
But then if it's not an employee-employee relationship, then there's not proper withholding on taxes and everything else doing too. And there may not be the contributions going into the person's Social Security, but they also may not be paying any taxes on anything. There's just a lot of things that are wrong about doing it. But it is done, and it's not enforced.
You should stay where you are, and everybody, the rest of the people that aren't, they have to bring themselves up.
Well, several of the people, the companies that I have worked for, that's one of the reasons I've worked for them, because I complied with all those requirements. And they, as business owners, realize the importance of that, and they're not going to allow people onto their property without being properly covered with insurance. Well, what other things have you noticed over the years? Any earth-shaking events?
Size of chainsaws.
The chainsaws.
Reliability of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got more powerful. They got smaller, lighter.
Yeah. More reliable, and also where they came from. When I first started, there were two common saws. We didn't know any better, so we thought that was all chainsaws were like that, and they were McCullough's and Homelines. Yeah.
Yep.
And now
nobody'd want one of them on the job almost.
No, somebody said they make good boat anchors or something like that, but they're terrible saws.
And it seems to be that foreign saws, foreign names connected to them seem to be the good commercial saws.
Yep. Very good saws, very high quality, very dependable.
And the safety features on them
Yep.
again. Down to the type of chain even, with the chain brake.
Yeah. Well, and there's clothing too. There's clothing that you've got a steel-toed boot on it. You can put a chainsaw into them that I guess you haven't done yet. Chaps mainly, I guess, are probably one of the bigger things. Earmuffs.
Hearing protection.
Yeah, but then nobody thought of that.
Most loggers, 60, 70 years old,
can't hear
anything.
No. They ran a noisy saw, the quietness of the new saws too.
Yep.
So we're taking better care of everything, I guess.
And some of the first saws I remember, well, maybe not the very first, but back into the 50s, to lug them into the woods. I mean, they put them on their shoulder and stuff. They weighed at least double, and they cut about.
Well, do you remember the handlebars too?
Yeah, the handlebars around them, and the carburetor, a lot of them was in the pistol grip handle. Mm-hmm. And it would only run it if that was level, so that if you're cutting like this, it was okay. When you went to cut a tree, you had to push a button, rotate the handle of the carburetor 90 degrees, so it'd be still vertical as you cut into the tree.
Well, you know what's neat too, Claude, is we're not at the end of progress either. I hope not, anyway. That where we're at today is going to be old-fashioned 25 years from now.
Well, probably be a laser saw sometime that you just go out, point at the tree and go, and when you do that, someone walks up behind you and you make a 360-degree circle.
What'd you say?
Southern Vermont's clear cut.
Yeah.
But I think there will be
Oh, yeah. I
laser
mean,
technology. When you take the value of timber, real good hardwood here, and when it has to be sawn, that's extremely expensive sawdust that's coming out of that piece of wood. Of course, in the rotary veneer, where it's done through with a knife, or the slicer veneer, all those things, it's peeled. There is no waste because it's a knife that's making a cut rather than a saw blade that's generating sawdust. And a lot of the saw blades, the band saws and things, they've got smaller, thinner,
making less sawdust.
less sawdust.
Sure.
No, but the safety issues have been very important, and the training that has taken place, and I think Vermont has been one of the leaders in the nation for that. Back with their workshops, 20 years ago or so, the AMP workshops, Acceptable Management Program practices, and some of the rules, legislations, but the Vermont state forest and parks and have really worked with industry hand in hand, and it's come
Well,
a
the
long
nice
way.
thing too is it's better for everybody.
Everybody.
It's safer, but it's also the safer you are, the cheaper your rates are.
Absolutely.
So it pays to play it safe.
Yep. Well, this has been a historical discussion, I guess. And, sure
What worked
has
out
a
neat is we're
picture
sitting
to look
inside
at.
here with a brutal wind out there, brutal wind chill, and we found a way to get some. One thing I'd someday would like to go show the people the steam engine up in Searsburg.
We know where it is, and we've attempted to go there twice.
Yeah.
And they used to say, well, we'll get there come hell or high water.
Well,
we
the
had
bridge
the
went
high
out.
water.
Yeah, the bridge went out. Maybe we'll have to go in the summertime. We'll take a walk up there in the summertime. But this was an old sawmill site that was either the machine went in and didn't get there, or was on its way out, and something happened. But there's no sawdust pile there. And usually that's one of the signs of a sawmill site is the sawmill pile, the sawdust piles.
And the sawdust piles stay forever.
And one of the things that I missed since that I always was going to ask Willie Morse about this, because I figured he started out working up in that area, that he would know the story about that. And Willie passed away since then, and maybe somebody else will know, but I don't know. This thing's sitting out in the middle of an old beaver meadow, but it's interesting to see.
Yep. We were going to go build a skidway.
Let's go build a skidway.
We'll go build a skidway.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, we're here at the skidway. We just built the skidway and we got some logs ready to load on the truck. We got a nice blue truck here.
Blue truck?
The tires are all flat, I guess. It doesn't have any.
Yeah.
Maybe you can hold the stakes up on that side and I'll start loading the logs so we don't lose them. Okay. So here we don't need much. Gravity's going to kind of do the work, and we just roll it over on these bunks,
Nearly level.
which hold it up from the truck rack so that it's only touching in one spot, so it'll roll easier.
Okay.
And then we roll another one on these planks.
So far, our truck hasn't tipped over.
No. And roll another one over.
So I guess that's what you do. You always put your big logs on the bottom, right?
Yeah, then we pull these planks back. We don't need those anymore. And we got some longer planks. And we're up here at another level.
Mm-hmm.
So these get rolled on.
It's a high budget operation, isn't it? When we were little kids, we'd be talking all, okay, Mr. Bowden.
And then we raise it up again.
Okay.
And take the smallest
logs.
one, gets that up on top. Okay, and then the stakes are in on that side, and it'd be strapped down and away it'd go.
Yeah.
But that was the system of the skidway.
Skidway, okay. Now how about that crossover?
Okay, now we'll take the skidway right out of the way here, because if we didn't have a skidway,
We're in a meadow now.
and we wanted to load something, so let's have an empty truck again.
Okay. Just like that? You just put that underneath the truck?
Yeah. Yeah, you just press down on that. So we got a log over here on the ground,
It's gotta go up in the
and
air.
it's got to go up onto the truck. So over on this side, there's a horse or a tractor or something that's pulling that, and that's called cross hauling.
Is it too heavy for you? Pull it.
There it is.
There it is.
Up on there.
Yeah. Now we get another log on that.
And then it gets repeated.
Let's take these bugs out of here. We got something bottom for them. Start her up.
There's another one in there.
Got that heavy thing up in the air with a little bit of time, but not much effort.
Yep, it's yeah, came loose on the bottom, but that's the technique that was used so often, and of course, with the chains or cables or whatever, they were tightly anchored there,
Mm-hmm.
and gave a pull, and it just kept coming right on up. And that relatively little effort.
Big mechanical advantage.
Because it's almost like a screw.
Yeah.
It's an inclined plane. That's what the skidway was using when it had to go uphill, an inclined plane, and gives you that mechanical advantage. And that's what a screw is, an inclined plane wrapped on an axis.
Okay.
That's why a screw jack, why you can lift so much with a jack. Because you've got all that distance all the way around the threads of the screw.
Tune in next month to teach them how to build a pyramid, right?
Yep.
Thousands of pound block and how to get them way up in the air.
So you're gonna saw these out today?
Yeah, if I get, try to finish them up. It's a big load.
And you can appreciate what it was then when you had a knot in a log, or it wasn't perfectly straight.
Mm-hmm.
It'd get on that flat spot. It took quite an effort to roll it, and then it would go by itself for a ways, and then you'd get that flat spot again. So, pretty hard to deal with on a big log. So that's the way they used to do it.
the way they used to. Now they go like this.
Yep. Yep, like that. Well, that doesn't fit too good there, so here.
Yeah.
And if you roll it on the other way and, oh, I wish that was the other way around, tough.
Yeah. And that's about how long it takes too on a,
Yep.
for somebody can operate a loader.
Yep. Or put this up here and, oh, that doesn't fit quite right. Put this one here first. Then we go back and get this one. Or it would take two at a time. Nice truck, Jim.
Thank you. Yeah. The blue velvet. Yeah.
I'm going to take the mountain with me.
Okay. Well, Claude, that was very interesting. History's, we lived part of it, and it's very interesting to look back and try to guess as to what the future is, but it's easier to be, I guess you're always going to be correct looking back.
Yeah, there's, on occasion on the History Channel, there's
a lot of good stuff. My favorite
I
channel.
think it's called Dangerous Missions, I think is what they look
Well,
at.
anything on the History Channel is my favorite
Yeah,
thing.
they are. It's excellent, excellent program. I don't think ours will quite rate along with
You
that.
don't think so?
No.
Well,
No. So, next month, it'll be right in the middle of sugaring,
yeah.
and it'll be
Maybe we should go to a sugar
warming up
house.
and stuff. So, we'll find something to do, as we always do.
Okay, and don't forget Maple Sunday, March the 24th. Visit your local sugar house. That's the 15 that signed up that want you there. They're expecting people to come, and they want you to come. So feel welcome there.
Yep.
And I'll see you next month too.
Yep, definitely.
Let's get back to work.
Boy, all this stuff I'm telling you, I just keep busy. Wonder what's down these aisles. Let's see, something back here. Oh boy, I'm telling you, all this food. Let's see what else we have. We need to find those nuts and those grubs and everything. And honey, I need to find some honey too. Oh, well, thank you.
I'm a
Look,
good shopper.
Look, oh, that's honey. I can smell that. That's, Oh boy, I like this place. The longer I'm in here, the more I like this place. Let's see what else they have down here. What are these things all hanging in bags here? Oh, they look like, let's see, what, are those more nuts there? Oh, they are. Oh, hold on, wait a minute. There's some loose macadam nuts. I need some of these macadam nuts. Aren't those macadam nuts? Aren't that what they call them, macadam nuts? See, right over here in this funny little container here. Right there, macadam nuts. Aren't those macadam nuts?
Macadamia.
Who? Macadam, yeah, macadam nuts.
See, there's an I in there.
There's no I in there. Those are all nuts in there. What do you mean? I've got two eyes, you have two eyes. There's no eyes in there.
It's a letter, Bruin.
A letter? You know, I
Like a
sent
letter
Mother
of
Mary,
the alphabet.
I sent Mother Mary a letter one time, and she sent me one back. If I write to you, would you send me a letter back too?
Ah, sure, why not?
You wouldn't put it in a jar and confuse me now, would you?
Oh, I'd never do that to you, Bruin.
Oh,
Never.
okay. Well, I got my macadam nuts there.
I got you your macadam
And
nuts.
what else do we have here? It looks like all sorts of nuts and good things. And
Hey,
what's
look
that?
it.
What are those?
Seeds.
Seeds.
Sunflower seeds.
Hey, I grew a garden one time. Are those the kind of seeds I put in my garden?
No,
No?
these are roasted.
Roasted?
Roasted sunflower seeds.
Roasted? Roasted's cooking again. You guys cook everything.
Take my word
goodness.
for it. They're really, really good. I'll
Okay.
throw those in there too.
I'll take your word for it. They're really good, huh?
They're
Yeah.
really good.
What else do you have here that's good?
I think we already got you a lot of nuts.
Well, you never can get me too many nuts. Grubs. How about grubs? Do you have a grub department?
No.
No? No, you don't have any snails?
Humans-
You don't have any...
Humans don't eat insects, Bruin.
Yeah, but they eat snails, don't they? And they eat chocolate-covered ants and things like that, I
But
understand.
those are all cooked. Nothing raw.
No grub department. Okay. But you know what? Somebody told me that you humans refer to all food as grub.
Well, yeah, that's sort of true. But
Oh.
that's like slang. That's not actually
Oh, so it's not
an
the kind of
insect.
it's not the kind of grub I'm used to. This
No.
is grub then.
This is grub food, not
Grub food.
grub out of a stump.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see what else you have here. What are these little things that look like stars all over the place? Right here it says POP something or other. Right, those things.
This
yes. Yeah.
It's popcorn.
Popcorn. That's popcorn. Do you have mother corn too?
Now, when you go into a garden and you get corn
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
somebody's trying to grow, this is what that is.
Yeah. Father corn, popcorn.
Yeah.
And you have mother corn too?
I didn't know they had father corn.
Well, it says popcorn, so there has to have a little baby corn too.
This is like when you cook it, it pops.
There they go with that cook again. Everything cook. Don't you guys ever eat anything raw?
Vegetables.
Oh, okay. Well, what else do we have here? We have popcorn, mother corn, baby corn. What else do we have? Let's see. Okay, you lead the way and I'll follow.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, is this? What's this? What's this? This looks like squished apples.
It's applesauce.
Applesauce? Is that like squished apples?
Yep, pretty much.
Ooh, I like apples. I like apples that are all
It's like
squished up.
squished apples and some juice.
Oh, apple juice? I like apple juice too. And this looks like all sorts of good stuff in through here. All sorts of, this looks more like my aisle. I see fruits and I say, are those blackberries? Are those cherries? What are those? And then, well, you put everything in funny containers.
Because we eat it with spoons. That's why.
Oh, what's a spoon? Is that a spoon right there?
This is a really big spoon.
Boy, yeah, that's the type of spoon
This
I
is the
could
type
use.
of spoon that you need.
That's right. Yep, that's the kind of spoon I need.
You want me to get you one of these for
Sure.
all the stuff you need?
Sure, yeah, to spoon that right out for me.
That's right.
But you know what? I just use my paws and my nose.
Yeah, but you know what? I think your paw is a little too big to fit in there.
Nope, but I bet my nose would.
Well,
See? That would fit.
yeah, I suppose it probably would. Well,
Well,
guess you don't need that.
no, I'm not used. I'd probably eat that instead.
Hey, look, Bruin. This
What's
is
that?
chicken noodle soup for when you get sick.
Bears
Good-
don't
good
get
stuff.
sick.
Sure they
Bears,
do.
No, we don't. No, I've never been sick in my day of my life. Well, I can't say that.
Didn't you ever eat a grub that was gone by or anything?
Well, I don't let grubs go by. I catch them all. What do you mean let a grub go by? I could eat a grub if it went by.
Sometimes it gets too old, you know, and it gets
No.
nasty.
Jeez, I didn't know bugs had ages. Is there any honey around here anyplace?
We haven't got to that aisle yet.
Oh, how many aisles are there?
A lot.
Best honey in town.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. Honey, honey, honey. Where's the honey? There's got to be some honey here somewhere. He said it was the best in town. Whoa, look, that looks like me. Oh, boy.
It is you. It's a bear.
No, I'm right here. Who is
Well,
that?
so is this.
Yeah.
Say,
And there's honey in there?
lots of honey.
Where are the bees?
No bees. You
No
get the
bees?
honey without the bees.
Oh, boy.
That's a good deal.
Yes, it is, because I usually have to fight all the bees before I get my honey.
Ugh, that
And-
stinks.
But no, it doesn't stink, it stings. Is what it does, boy. Sometimes they really sting. I think we got some people here want to get by.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a little better.
Thank you. Well, at any rate, how much? We have a lot of honey here. What do you got over there?
Look at, there's that Vermont cheddar I was telling you about.
Vermont cheddar.
Gotta have that.
Cheddar? I don't
It's that
cheddar.
cheese, remember?
Oh, cheese.
Cheese.
The cheese is in cheddar.
Your replacement.
That's right. He's taking over my job.
Oh, not yet. Next week, maybe.
Here, they're hiring.
Yeah, that's what I was told. I was told they're hiring. Well, how much? You got all sorts of different kinds of honey here. We have some Vermont honey. And what else you got up in there?
Vermont maple syrup.
Maple syrup.
Haven't you ever had maple syrup?
Well, yeah. Mother Mary and I boiled some. Well, she had a different way of getting syrup out of a sap out of a tree.
That big all, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Oh, honey and sir. Okay, I'll let you figure out what I need there. Oh, somebody else wants to get by. How you doing?
Good.
Thank you for the honey.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime, dear.
Okay.
Look, yeah, we'll have to get this to put on your crayfish.
A crayfish and maple syrup. That sounds like a great deal.
I know, doesn't it?
Well, I tell you, there's a lot of nice people in this store. And you work here,
And I work here.
and I might be able to work here too.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
boy,
could
that-
work here together, Bruin.
That could be a lot of fun. Hello, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Now that I have all this, what do I do now? Just walk out and...
No.
No, what do I do now?
We have to send you up to the customer service desk to get an Advantage card.
To get a what?
Advantage card. You see, when you have an Advantage card,
I got a lot of advantages. I'm a bear, I live in the woods, I don't have to pay rent.
this has nothing to do with this. This means that the stuff that's in your cart you'll have to pay less for because you will have a savings card for all your groceries.
Oh, good, so they'll save all my groceries for me, and then when I need to get them, I come back and I get them again? Well,
No.
that's pretty neat, so I don't need a cupboard or anything else like that?
Let's bring you to the service desk and they can explain all of that there. How's that
Okay,
sound?
good enough. I'll follow you.
Wow, look at that.
Coming through, excuse me. Let's see. Customer services available at this window, it says. Is that what that sign says? Yep. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Well, I'm okay.
Can I do something for you?
Well, I'm not quite too sure. I was told I need to get a card.
Okay.
Is that like a cardboard or what?
No, it's plastic.
It's plastic?
Right.
A plastic card. Okay. Let me see. Look over.
Just gonna have to fill out this top section here and then sign it at the bottom.
And sign it at the bottom. Does an X work?
Sure.
Okay. Could you help me with that, please? There we go. Okay. And do I have to answer any of these questions? There's a whole bunch of lines here.
First name.
Bruin.
Okay, middle initial.
D. I bet you don't know what my last name is, do you?
What is your last name? I don't think you've ever told me.
Bear. Bruin the Bear. That's my full name. It's not Bruin the Ant. It's not Bruin the Elephant. It's Bruin the Bear.
Okay, address.
Beartown, where else? I don't have a phone.
What state?
Well, Vermont, where else?
You're like having so much fun. Is there a zip code for that?
No, we don't even have any Velcro. No Velcro codes, no zip codes, no. I have a lot of trees and a lot of plants.
What's your birthday?
It was. I was born, I know that. But, do I need a birthday? It was on a Monday, I think.
Okay, we'll leave that empty.
Oh, okay. It might have been a Tuesday.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a Monday.
Bakers?
You don't have an email address, do you?
A what? An email? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I do have an email, but I even have a website, too.
What's your email address?
I think it's RuindyBear at Yahoo. Well, that's what bears do. I think of Yahoo. Well, I don't have a phone, but I do have a website. I do have a. You ever come to my website?
I have, actually.
Well, BeartownNews.com.
Okay.
February's issue's just out, but I don't have a phone.
You aren't gonna need to cash a check here, are you?
A check? I got lots of checks. I check the trees, I check the plants, I check the grubs. That kind of check to me.
No, like a paper check that you pay for paper stuff with.
That, Terry.
I don't think so.
No?
I
Okay.
never checked the paper.
Okay. Well, we'll let it go.
Okay, now I get a plastic.
Now you get a plastic card.
And what do I do with the plastic card?
You give it to the cashier when you go to buy your groceries.
And is she telling me the truth?
Yes, she is. It'll save you money when you give it to the cashier.
Money? Oh, okay. I like saving anything. And she says that you guys save my groceries too. Is that true?
You know what?
Save my groceries?
Save your groceries?
Yeah. So
Well, you
I
might
don't
want
have
to store them up for the winter. It's kind of cold out there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, Pam, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
We'll see what we have to do next. Now what do I do?
I think he might be back to apply for a job. He heard you were hiring.
Yes.
We're always hiring here.
Well, boy, would it be fun working here? Yeah, it would. Okay, what do I do now?
Okay, now we gotta go this way.
This way and that way and all sorts of ways. Okay. Boy, this gets more and more confusing. Let's see, she said go this way. Okay, I'll go over this way. Oh, I wonder if I'm supposed to go down here. I bet I am. I don't fit. I can't fit in this aisle here.
Okay.
You have a one that's a little bit bigger?
Nope, they don't get any bigger than this.
Okay, I gotta put all this stuff out on that black thing, right?
You know what? I'll do it for you.
Okay, thank you. Don't forget my salmon. There's my salmon. It's the funniest looking salmon I've ever seen in my entire life. No scales. Turned inside out. Wow, look at all that stuff. And that card's gonna save me money. Hey,
It's gonna save you money.
how come you keep the door open?
Well, the door's not working right at the moment. Here, hold on to this for just a second, would you? Thank you. Thank you.
I think she's about to shut me up. I think I'm supposed to put the card in my mouth. Yep, sit back and hold that. Gotta get this card out of my mouth. What are you doing with all that stuff now? You're putting it in something else.
I'm wringing it out, and then it's gonna go in a bag.
Wringing it out. Don't you do that with wet cloth? Wring it out?
Yeah, you do that too.
Well, why are you... None of that stuff's wet. So why are you wringing it out?
It's a word we use for what we do to the groceries so that people pay for them.
You always dance when you're at work?
Huh?
You always do a dance when you're at work? This is like Entertainment Plus.
No, just when I'm cold in front of the door, that's all.
Oh, you ever get cold behind the door?
No, usually it's closed.
Oh, okay.
You owe me $33.93.
Huh? How much?
$33.93.
Can I put that on a tab?
What tab?
Isn't that what my card's for?
No, that's supposed to save you money.
Oh, okay. Well, let me dig in my fur coat here and see if I can get some money for you. There's some money for you. Look, it's gonna blow away. Uh-oh. And now... Hello. She said she wanted some money. I put the money on the table. There, she's got it.
Okay.
She got it. Okay.
20.35. Okay.
Yep. Do I get some money back?
I think so. Yeah, you get $1.07.
Oh, funny. Now that I got everything out of my cart, I can get through.
34 and 35.
Well, thank you very much. and now I can go back. And,
Now you can go back home and hibernate where it's probably warmer.
Well, I don't like it warm. I like it when that door's open. Bears like it cold. That's why we have all this fur, you know. Well, thank you for the dance. Thank you for the tour. And I'm going to be back and
You gonna apply for a job?
Yeah. I like the people here, and I think I can have a lot of fun here.
I bet you could. And just think, you wouldn't have to eat grubs out of rotten stumps anymore.
What's wrong with eating grubs out of rotten stumps? That's where they taste it. Well, I gotta go. Thank you much. See you later.
Bye, Vermont.
Well, I'm Claude Dern, and this is Jim White, Bennington County Forester, and we're out in one of the big snowstorms of the year.
Yeah, another
inch
or so.
Another
Yeah.
inch or so.
Yeah.
And this is what, Vermont's fifth season of the year?
Mud season or sugar season? Well, I guess we have six. Because
Six of them.
we have the regular 4 that other people have, plus mud season and plus sugar season.
And you can always count on them coming.
Yep.
Right? And we're in the middle of sugaring season.
Yeah,
But it's
it was
only
an
what,
early this year.
March 6th, so
Yep.
a little bit early.
Yeah. But a
That's
good year so far.
Yeah, I guess so.
And
And where are we anyway?
where are we? We're at David Mance's in South Shaftesbury. And David, come on in here. Get right in there. We're going to ask you a few questions, and then we're going to let
We'll
you
do a
take
show and tell.
Yeah, okay. It all starts right here, I guess, right?
Starts at the tree.
Yeah.
And sugar maple, which of the 2 kinds of maples we have in Vermont, primarily the red maple and sugar maple, we only use the sugar maples for sap. You can use either, but the sweetness is a little bit better, the quality is better, and the sugar maple will run through the end of the season. The red maple seems to quit early.
And it tends to get a buddy flavor to
Yeah.
it, and mixing the 2 together, if you have a quart of one and a quart of the other, you get a quart of the bad stuff, really.
Right.
Or 2 quarts of the bad stuff.
Right.
I mean, one follows the other, so.
Well, actually, a syrup could be made out of most any tree, but I don't know how it comes out. I believe that they made some of them birch at one time.
They do in Alaska quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah.
White birch, and we've toyed with the idea of trying tapping white birch after the maple, but we're usually so exhausted after sugar season. We have no more wood left in the woodshed, and we have no more energy left in ourselves.
Well, sugaring's fun, isn't it? But the cleanup is, nobody enjoys that, but it's necessary.
Everybody's anxious to go in January and early February, get set up, and by the end of March, when you're done, you're exhausted and
A lot of work, a lot of
Struggle.
hours, a lot of long days and nights,
Yeah.
too,
Yeah, it is.
depending on the weather.
And if you have a day job, you gotta kind of just forget sleeping, don't you?
that's right.
And like last year with 3 major snowstorms, you waller in the snow a lot, depending how you're set up.
We tapped with snowshoes last year. This year we had bare ground, and we still had snow on the ground when we were finished last year. So it was a strange year. Not a particularly great one for those colder bushes. But this year's been great so far. We've had 2 real good runs. We've made a lot of good quality syrup that everybody down south has, and in some places they're just getting started. So we've been fortunate.
You bit the bullet and said when the weather forecast gave you a couple of days of what should have been good weather, warm temperatures in the daytime and cool at night, you jumped in and said,
It was
I'm gonna
time.
gamble.
That's
Yeah,
right. We
yeah.
didn't follow the calendar. We
Yeah.
followed the sky.
Thermometer. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we've had some of the real extremes that seem to work the best. We've had almost the coldest temperatures of the year in the past couple of weeks, down to around 0, and up into the 50s. And
Strange.
the forecast the next week is going to be the same thing again,
Yeah,
up to
yeah.
50s and down to 0 again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfect sugaring weather.
Yeah.
Not down to 0, but that at least drop back into the 20s and get to the 40s.
And the real cold weather gives us a nice break.
Yep.
We had a strong run 2 weekends ago, and then we had a few days off so we could clean up and get organized, catch our breath, and then we had another good run on Sunday.
Well, this one needs it too. This needs the rest.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can't just be cold once and warm forever
Mhm.
because they'll dry right up. And
Yeah. They'll quit early.
Any thoughts on the drought situation we have? I mean, we're way behind in precipitation last year and this year so far, and the ground is dry if you dig into it. But
The ground is dry, and I thought that might have an impact on us, but most of my sugar woods are fairly low on the mountains, and they seem to have decent soil moisture. And we did have enough rain without frost in the ground, so we have picked up a little soil moisture the last couple of months. I don't think it's helping the groundwater at all, but the trees seem to be doing all right. And last summer was dry, but we get enough showers ongoing that we...
The foliage and crops in the area didn't look that bad.
No.
But farther north there, we're in a drought. We were dry, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't want to say Vermont is out of it, or we're still in it. But other people are worse off than we are.
Yes, definitely.
Well, you have some old-fashioned equipment here, and you have some ultra-modern equipment here.
We go from
Everything.
one end of the spectrum to the other. We have about 300 buckets, similar to this one that we put on trees.
Any wooden ones?
No wooden ones. Those are only on display in the sugar house. We also have tubing. We run about 1,000 taps on tubing, and then still boil traditionally with wood, but we do have a reverse osmosis machine to help us through the busy periods.
Reverse osmosis. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Everybody learned about osmosis in the 10th grade, right? And we're going to review that.
That's right.
And then forgot about it.
That's right.
Yeah. So you've got 300 buckets.
Yes.
What do you use to say how many buckets you're going to put on a tree, or how many taps on a tree?
We never put more than 2 taps in a tree, regardless of how big the tree is.
Okay.
And we'll start tapping a tree with a bucket. It has to be at least 12 inches in diameter. With tubing, we use the health spouts,
Okay.
which are a much smaller diameter
Do we have
hole.
both of those spouts?
We do.
Can we show them? Right.
We can.
Okay. Here's last year's tap hole, and you can see the how that's closing in, healing over. We call it closing over, but it doesn't really heal. But there's new growth coming in from both sides to close the wound on the tree. And there's
one there,
from the year before, yeah, right here.
But it's very important when tapping a tree to identify where those are, because you
Yep.
don't want to be
In that vein.
in line in vertical, because it actually, there's a section of
Yeah.
dead wood where that
Yeah.
was.
You try to get like 3 or 4 inches either side of it and a foot above or below it if you're, but you stay away from where it was tapped before. So we got 1, 2 old tap holes.
So you just don't walk up to the tree and drill a hole.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
look it over first.
Here's another one older still, and you can see how much the tree has grown since this one was tapped. And that's what a good healthy tree should almost close in 1 year. And that's a great indicator of the health of a tree, is how fast it'll close that hole.
Indicator of how deep the snow was that particular year too, sometimes. But
Well, this is our demonstration tree, and so we keep the bucket low, so if kids come to see, the first thing they want to do is look in the bucket,
Yeah.
see if the sap is running, and
Kids of all sizes want to do that.
well, yeah, but you get a 5-year-old and you put the tap up here waist high, and all of a sudden he's leaning on the bucket and trying to climb up the bucket to see into the top of it. So the tapping wounds on this tree are lower than we might otherwise have.
Do you get a lot of kids to come? I mean, do the schools come?
Well, one of the beauties of our sugar bush is that we're walking distance from the Shaftesbury Elementary School,
Okay.
so they can come down here and often do each year, and they can walk.
Yeah.
They don't need to arrange bus transportation. We can
That's
also
neat.
do it as a last-minute thing. If we're boiling sap, if it's been a good day, we don't have to plan this a week or so in advance. They can
Yeah.
call up in the morning, and if we're boiling sap, they'll come down and take a look at things.
Hope that never ends. That kids always.
Yeah.
well, I've seen alongside the town roads years when there's a lot of snow and the grader went through and winged it back, and it was up 6-8 foot high, the snowbanks, and they'd put the bucket as close to the top of the snowbank, and I think at the end of the year they might have had to use a ladder to take it down.
Yeah. That happened to us with the tubing last year.
Oh,
With-
got
with
buried
the snow
three
depth.
or four times.
And we would, to get pitch, we had to bring the lines up above the snow, still maintain the pitch, so we were tapping at head height from the snowshoes. So when we were done, we took carried a little step stool around with us to
Get the
get
lines
some
down.
of the higher ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you use a power tapper, Dave?
We do.
Yeah. You
And
have
we use a gas tapper.
Okay. You have one of those?
We do.
Huh?
And when you drill that hole, you always slant it slightly uphill.
Slightly uphill. We don't drill the full depth of the bit. This is the larger size bit, which is the old style. We use this for buckets and also for the old spouts. We go in about 1.5 inches. The new health spout, which is 19/64ths of an inch, which is, well, roughly 2/3 the size of the other one. This is 7/16. That we go in 1.5 inches, so it's a shallower hole. It's a much smaller diameter hole, and it tends to heal up a lot quicker than the bigger holes, and
you don't lose that much volume, do you?
we don't feel that we lose any volume. The hole in this tap is roughly the same size as the diameter of the tubing. So if you think about it, if your tubing is going to limit the amount of sap that can flow through it, there's no point in having a much bigger hole narrowing down to get into the tube. So.
And they call it a health spout mainly because of that. They feel it's easier on a tree.
Yeah, they've shown in studies that the wound is that the tree will heal itself, but it blocks off a certain amount of the
Tissue.
cambium and the sap transporting tissue in the tree, and with the health spout, that band of sealed off wood is much narrower and shorter than using the conventional spouts. So we've switched over most of our tubing to the health spouts now. We still run about 400 of the older style.
And these are relatively new, right? Just the past
The
few
last
years?
few years, yeah, they've really come a long way. And of course now with vacuum, they say that a lot of people are actually just putting a little vacuum on the tubing to keep the sap flowing. And with the health spouts, there's no difference at all. In fact, it actually helps because that it's a smaller hole. It won't dry out. It won't seal over during the season, and they get as much or more sap with a smaller spout.
So I think when it's healing up, it almost just clogs itself with the sap and seals the hole off,
Yeah.
where it won't do that as quick with the larger hole.
Right.
But that sloping it uphill too is to keep at the end that it will drain and not let other water contaminants and things go into the hole and
Well,
infect the tree.
I always thought that yes, that's part of it, but I also always felt that it just gave the sap a running start. But yeah, once you're done and you've pulled the tap holes, you don't want to put anything in to plug them, or just let
Tree knows
nature.
what to do.
The tree knows how to take care of the wound, and in many cases, as Jim says, within a year, the new wood has just about healed them over.
Well, there have been times in some seasons where I know people have gone and even re-drilled something that actually they healed up and stopped from a period of 2 or 3 weeks of inactivity, and it wouldn't start up again.
With buckets, that's more of a problem, because if the sap's not running, you do have air getting back in there, and the air will dry out the tap hole. And it's a little trickier because you don't want to over drill the hole, otherwise you'll have a leak around the spout. But yeah, I've in fact years ago have had to do that when I was doing all buckets. You go in with just a slightly bigger drill and open the hole back up, and gives you another start.
Well, we'll see what you've got inside.
What do you
here.
do with this stuff?
What do I do with it? Well, we gather it,
You put it in a can and sell it, right?
Right.